what is called the learning management system. They're called LMS. The management system varies. It is either a closed system or it is an open source. And if you bought a closed system, it is very expensive. But if you engage in an open source, change is always happening from different sectors of the community. So Moodle is one of them, Elias is one of them, Sakai, BB stands for Blackboard, A Tutor, and so on. And these are teaching and learning in web environments. So either for e-learning or in addition to in-classroom course, we can use LMS. It enables to plan and track learning processes. And as you can see, we try to do these things manually now. And there's a lot of human errors involved when you're doing it manually. But on the platform, it is very precise and it does the work for you right away. So you wouldn't have to worry about having to keep tracking. It provides courses, books, training events, and the content. It has the ability to register learners for the course itself. So in most cases, web-based integration information systems are happening for LMSs. It supports online activities of the persons involved in teaching and learning, and it also facilitates administration of and access to learning content anytime, anywhere, and with any pace. So that's the operative, anywhere, anytime, with any pace. However, for those who are doing hybrid, they have to stay within the confines of the student academic calendar. And so that's an essential part of it. In the academic calendar, you have time-sensitive grade reporting that needs to happen. And so as a result, you're tied to the campus calendar that way. Okay. So the 12 best free learning management systems out here, you see they are registration for instructor-led and e-learning courses and so on. So these LMS systems are out there that you can tap into and you don't have to invest too much money. The only person that you need to invest in is the person who's taking care of the software. Okay, so as you can see, the presentation of learning content happens, the creation of assignments happen within this virtual environment. And learning content is something that is department specific, that the department would choose to say, this is the way in which we're going to map this out. And remember earlier when I talked to you about each week, you are breaking it down into measurable components. And that's very easy to do because once you know the system, then you can take that template and create a second week template. And you can take the first week's template and create a third week's template, and then you just change the content of it. So it's very easy to do. Okay. The difference between CMS, LMS, and LCMS, they are interchangeable in some ways, but CMS, content management system, has to do with how you deal with the subject matter. The learning management has to do with the environment. CMS is part of the environment, okay? And so then you have learning content management systems where all of these things are put together to make a whole. These terminologies may not come to play in the early stages, but I think in time, when you have greater engagement, these distinctions will need to be made. Okay. Then you have what we call the C3MS. It has to do with content management, community, collaboration management systems. And so these are all working together in tandem to make this thing move forward. The teacher is the manager, moderator, and the facilitator. Then you have, these are effective learning tools to support socio-constructive approaches such as a project-based learning or virtual learning environments. Why we need LMS? A complete or partial replacement of frontal teaching. I think the frontal teaching will never cease to exist. There will always be the bread and butter of an institution, and that's the way it should be. So the 10 features that an LMS should have: can the LMS be implemented quickly and easily without programming? So for the technocrat, this is important. Now they need to know: can the LMS support multimedia, such as Flash and streaming and those kinds of things? And so the reason why people go with Moodle is because, yes, it does all of the above. Data management, usually a relationship-based database that you have, modularization, scalability, distribution, integration. So these are all technical information that students don't need to carry themselves with, but for those who are in the technical department, they have to know how to make this thing happen, okay? And then, of course, IMS Global. There are standards to be followed, as was mentioned earlier, that when things that are open source, are launched into the global context, it has to be such that it can be easily adopted by peoples of the world. And different institutions use LMS in different ways, so they have to be aware of that. So Sullivan, in that respect, is an online institution, and they cannot be compared to any of the regular colleges, four-year colleges, because they only have a digital footprint. But when they have 70,000 students, then you're asking yourself, wow, there's something working in there that they're able to produce. So they have pharmacology also. Last year when I went to this institution in Assam, a pharmacology school, there were several students that were interested in their doctor of pharmacy out there. But their program was cost prohibitive to them because it was 102,000 US dollars. But that's 50% of what it would cost if you went for doctor of pharmacology in another institution. So for Indian students, that's out of reach. So in that sense, then you have to physically be about looking for scholarships and things like that. But in an online environment, I just wanted to show this as an example. Usually when you go into any kind of a web environment, you have student logins, you have alumni logins, and so on. And you will not have access to this until and unless you have applied to the institution. When you apply, you are given steps to go through, including financial aid and stuff like that. So if you can see this little pop-up here on the side, they always have a 24/7 tech support. And in Moodle also, the Moodle and the server culture that serves Moodle is an organization called the Learning House. When the Learning House becomes the server that houses Moodle for a particular university, then you're paying the services of the Learning House. Because what the Learning House is going to do, it's going to market it for you. They're also not only going to market it for you, but they will also do admissions counseling for you. In addition to admissions counseling, they also will provide scholarship and financial aid details. They will monitor academic proficiency, on the basis of which they will discuss what kind of scholarships are available to you, government scholarships or non-governmental scholarships. They will see if your ACT is appropriate, if your SAT is appropriate, if your IB scores are appropriate. They will also see your HSC credentials. And if you're an international student, then they will try to ask you for your IELTS, your PTE, your TOEFL. These are measures that they're looking at. And of course, for internationals, they always are asking you for your bank statement, because they want to know that you will not become a liability to the institution. So this is Sullivan University. And I just wanted to make sure that you are aware that they have such a thing as admissions and aid, which is where you would look for your scholarships and things like that. They have one for international students right down here. So you can see that highlighted. And international students follow a very different regimen of activity compared to the normal, American student. Then you have your ESL student. ESL student is one who is low in English, cannot speak English. So in ESL, students can come in for a very cheap rate. And so the technique among international students is for them to come on the ESL mantra, and they pay a fraction of the cost. And once they finish their ESL, then in the next semester, they can go directly into the 4-year program. Then you have tuition costs, then you have loans and grants, and you have scholarships. See that? And it'll tell you exactly where all of these things are. And when you go into, let's say, scholarship side of things, then it'll tell you. You can have scholarship, specific specializations and qualifications. Then you have scholarships specifically for high school, for specialty cases, work-ready Kentucky scholarships. So there are all kinds of scholarships there you can look into. So in the certificate programs, those are short terms, but you can also have abbreviated certificate for 6 months also. Then you have vocational, professional education also. So you have all of those things in many of these institutions, but this is a university I taught at, and they try to make it very user-friendly in that if you apply, and the color codations are very key on their part. They have an online application, as you can see here. It's very specific, and once you go through an application process, then they will take you to the next level and the next level with regards to financial things.
I had just a small discussion with my friend.
Okay.
He raised one question.
Okay.
Regarding the applicability or acceptance of the online degrees. I mean, how receptive the industry is. I mean, if somebody has an online degree, right, as he was just as concerned, right, what will his employer think about that? Will he prefer him, or will he prefer someone who is having a degree from regular mode?
Yeah.
How would that be? Will
And I
there
think
be
the
any discrimination?
Oh no, I think in the past there used to be discrimination, but I think the gap has narrowed more and more, because there are a lot of very gifted online educated peoples out there. So yesterday, a man was talking about how do we know if a person who's got all of the papers straightened out with all of the qualifications but doesn't know how to deliver. That's another side of the spectrum. Huh? But on the other hand, a person can be very gifted but they may not have all of the credentials. Who would you want to work with? And I think a forward, innovative institution will weigh all of these things. And I think in the traditional norm, they will want the academic side of things, well situated and staffed to be able to ensure stability. But in an innovative industry, someone like a Mark Zuckerberg, who has never had an undergraduate degree, is selling, $5 billion. He can deliver without his degree. So there are cases like that. So I suppose the department has to be intuitive enough to be able to make those decisions. So the Department of Education in India has set the mark that anyone teaching in higher education at a certain level must have the terminal degree, let's say. So that is there, and I think within the US system they're beginning to accept more and more terminal degrees from online, because they have figured out that online deliveries and measures and marks are pretty solid.
Well, actually now, even for teachers, annually we are supposed to go through some courses as teachers in the teaching field. And recently it has opened up online master's program and the
Uh-huh.
undergraduate programs
That's
as well.
interesting, yeah.
But
So-
I think the problem that we are facing is that we have an affiliation with a higher university, the
Yeah.
Nagaland University,
Yeah.
which has not yet
Endorse
adopted this
that.
model.
Yeah.
That's where we are sort of, but we can, I think, incorporate a lot of online learning, which we're already doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we can think of innovative ways of doing it as a blended learning.
Yeah, yeah. I think blended forms are very acceptable. And that article that I gave you came to you from Pittsburgh University. And I think they are doing that, and it's very acceptable. You guys have been great. Let's take a break and come back tomorrow. Okay?